And folks, for those who are just starting to jump in, feel free to introduce yourself in the chat with your name and your organization and where you're joining us from in the state. Glad to see everyone. We'll give it maybe 2 more minutes. We'll kick off at 11:05. I just know folks are got very busy days and want to give everyone a chance to jump in.
Hey, Sasha, I can jump in real quick before we get
Please.
started.
Oh,
Just
love that.
everyone, this is Andrew Schneider. I'm the Senior Director of Government Affairs here at Arts Alliance Illinois. And I'm going to be logging off here shortly to get back on the phone with House staffers, try and get a little bit of work done here in Springfield since they're coming back from spring break. But I wanted to just jump in before the conversation and thank everyone who is participating in real time. We look forward to the discussion. There are also many more folks who registered who couldn't attend in real time. So we'll make sure to get the recording out to them so they're oriented to the great work that's happening and the advocacy opportunities associated with that. And then just the last privilege of the floor that I will use here is really to thank Sasha for being such an incredible representative of creative workers and for the dedicated way that Sasha, you've brought our voices into these worker coalitions and have brought the issues back to us. It's been an incredible year of growth for the Alliance and our creative worker policy agenda, and we really owe that to you, Sasha. So keep up the great work. Thanks for hosting this conversation. And I'm going to be here in the background for a few minutes if anyone needs me on the chat.
Awesome. Thank you, Andrew. I appreciate that. It's good to know I will continue to keep my job for just based on that alone. Hi, everybody. Good morning, and thank you for joining us today. Well, we're really glad to welcome you all and for making the time, really, as Andrew said. Like, we have a lot of growth, a lot of things that are happening at Arts Alliance. You all have a lot that's happening. There's a lot happening in the world. And so to make 45 minutes, an hour's worth of time just to really come together as a community, and really in this case today to highlight worker-centered bills shaping this year's general session is really important to us. I think what's really great about bringing in, as Andrew said, like working coalitions is being able to learn from one another and know that we are not alone, right? We can't work, this work doesn't happen in isolation. We really need to, we are stronger together, as we say. So this work is really deeply collaborative, and we're really grateful to be joined in partnership with, you'll hear from them today. There's 4 different coalitions representatives that are here, and they'll be able to speak about how they are advancing equitable workforce policy across Illinois. So we'll hear from Illinois Partners for Human Service, Arise Chicago, Illinois Reset, and Illinois Small Business Majority. I'll share a couple of things in a bit from the Illinois Skills for Good Jobs Coalition, of which several of us here are also a part of. If you've just joined us in the chat, if you just joined us, we ask you to please introduce yourself in the chat, your name, your org, type of work you do, and where you're joining us from in the state. So with that, we'll get started here. Let's see. Okay, we'll kick off with what we do, just for those who are new to Arts Alliance, a little bit high-level introduction to our work. And then we'll hear from the worker coalitions, and you'll see how our policy agenda maps to our policy agenda priorities map to those of the coalitions that we are really glad to elevate today. We'll do a Q&A after we hear from our speakers, and just close out with ways to stay connected with us throughout the rest of the year. For many of us, it's April is a very big, March and April is a big, heavy let's go down to Springfield. Let's advocate as a group. There's a lot of that happening. But even outside of uh, going down to Springfield, know that you can always contact your local legislator. And that action makes such a difference to develop those relationships. Um, it is always fun to go in a big, big mass of people to see that and really actually feel palpable collective power. But really, that is all that power is built from the single actions that each of us can do with our own legislative representatives. And so, with that, just a quick high-level intro of Arts Alliance Illinois for anyone that's new on this call to our work. Arts Alliance Illinois is a statewide nonprofit arts advocacy organization, and our mission is to build the creative sector's power through advocacy and connections to resources in service of improving the quality of life for communities statewide. We serve both the city of Chicago and the state of Illinois. You'll see on screen we work with DCASE really closely. We work with Illinois Arts Council, with Illinois Arts Council being the state department, the government agency that is wholly dedicated to arts culture in Illinois. And they are a grant maker. Arts Alliance does advocacy. We partner together. A lot of the grant making dollars that Illinois Arts Council is able to distribute throughout the year continues to be insured in the state budget each year because of our advocacy collectively. And a big thank you to those on this meeting today who have really joined us in this work for several years. And for those who are new, we're really happy to invite you into this work. We also have a body of work, even at the county level. It's more recent, but we are also working with Cook County specifically in looking to strengthen arts and culture resources in suburban Cook. So really these different layers of public relationship building is really important to our work. Today, we're going to focus on a body of advocacy to strengthen creative workers. You'll see that we have really since COVID, there's been an expansion of how notion of what does advocacy mean for us and how can we support the field. And so we do that through advocacy, but within 4 specific pillars, we're focusing our efforts. So today we'll focus on creative workers, but we also have work that's specifically targeting K through 12 arts education, resource navigation, and public funding. A lot of that work and that programming is really captured in what we are able to do now on our virtual help desk. And you'll hear a little bit more about that later. And then we also have a body of, or a whole dimension of our work that is dedicated to research. And I'm excited because we're coming off of a really successful first ever Creative Workforce Summit, which happened 2 weeks ago with University of Illinois, the School of Fine Arts, and Discovery Partners Institute. And it was wonderful to have an interdisciplinary audience, really all looking at and coming together to learn, look at the research, just have important discourse on how we can strengthen our systems to support a stronger and economically stable creative workforce. Often folks ask, what does advocacy do? And our impact at Arts Alliance is here. We have a large network. And while our members represent all various areas of the creative ecosystem, it's really exciting to be able to invite coalitions here today as part of that expanded ecosystem, really looking at supporting the workforce, recognizing that creative workers are an important part of it. We really see the creative worker as the engine of the creative economy here in Illinois, but also a critical part of the state's broader workforce. We really believe, as our partners at DCASE and their campaign around creative workers being really critical to the creative economy. Art is labor. We are not just here. We don't do this work as a luxury or as a hobby. It's as real work, and so we are really, as Arts Alliance and in partnership with all of our members and those who are hear today from other coalitions really wanting to elevate the importance and critical value of the creative worker in the state. And so often folks ask, who is the creative workforce? And at Arts Alliance, we identify the creative worker as anyone who earns income through creative activities, whether they're an artist or a designer, a performer, a writer, other cultural and artistic professions. It's important to know that Illinois has one of the biggest creative economies in the nation, bringing in $37.4 billion in economic impact. Illinois is also home to one of the largest populations of workers employed in the arts and culture sector and contributing 226,000 jobs. And so really at Arts Alliance, our approach is when we look at policy, it's grounded first and foremost in the lived realities of our creative workforce. And so last year we were able to engage a whole slew of our network. We've talked to artists, we talked to creative entrepreneurs, we talked to the heads of cultural organizations across Illinois through 5 policy roundtables, 5 virtual sessions, a statewide survey. And so in that we were able to refresh our policy agenda, and we have 6 policy priorities that you'll see on the screen. And what's important to us about these priorities is that, again, this is coming straight from the lived experiences of the creative workforce here in our state. We really see creative workers not just as W-2 employees. We know that many creative workers are mixed income workers. And so it's important that we are establishing fair pay standards and looking at compensation analyses to make that possible. We are committed to expanding access to affordable quality benefits, regardless of employment type. We know that that a lot of arts and culture workers are self-employed 1099 workers or have small businesses. And in that, it's important that we can increase access to space and tools and the infrastructure for individuals in this sector to create. We also want to see more investment in the creative workforce, in creative workforce development supports and resources, and the ability to strengthen industries within the creative sector, but also the communities that are impacted by that. So workforce development systems getting tighter and closing those gaps, and being able to recognize the unique needs and the ways that creative workers are really managing their day-to-day with work and earning income. We also want to continue implementing and enforcing the Freelance Worker Protection Act, and finally just thinking about more broadly resources, support for artists, creative small businesses, and nonprofits. So that's looking like small business development supports. It's being able to coordinate that better, looking at investments, thinking that and remembering that a lot of the arts and culture activities that happen in the state are done through smaller nonprofit organizations. And that's why Illinois Arts Council getting funded every year is so important, as it is for some areas in the state, the only source of arts and culture funding. And where we are very fortunate for those of us here in Chicagoland that have access to more resources, that's not always the case. And so our commitment is really to help connect the dots to the presence of arts and culture and healthy communities that can thrive because of its presence. One of the, I just mentioned, with one of our policy priorities is continuing to educate and helping enforce the Illinois Freelance Worker Protection Act. This was signed into law June 1st, 2024. Will Guzzardi introduced it and has come back to Arts Alliance asking for more support in being able to ensure that there are more artists, those more freelancers that are aware of this piece of legislation. And under the law, you'll see at a high level that freelance workers it was important to provide freelance workers critical protections. And so some of that it looks like that means for us, protections means requiring a written contract for work, for any work totaling $500 or more within a 120-day period. The piece of legislation also ensures timely payment, creates a formal complaint process through the Illinois Department of Labor if terms are violated. We can go into details in terms of like what is a contract actually, and a contract can be as simple as anything written. It doesn't have to be something formal, but if it's something written and there was an exchange of goods or services, artistic and creative, then there is payment that absolutely needs to be ensured within a timely manner. And so Because awareness remains low of this act, it's important to us at Arts Alliance to continue educating folks about that. The more that we know, we hear from the field that it's really difficult as a 1099 worker to get paid. And so the more that we can support, educate, and inform artists, they're not the only freelance workers out in the state, but we know that artists and cultural workers make up a large portion of 1099 workers, and it's important that there is awareness that they can go to the DOL, and we'll be having an arts and labor webinar series coming up in May and June with Lawyers for the Creative Arts to go into deeper detail about what constitutes a contract, what's worker classification, what does it mean to be a 1099 worker? What does that look like? What does it mean to be a W-2 worker? What are my rights as a W-2 worker? What are my rights as a 1099 worker? How, as an arts organization, can I can ensure that I'm in compliance? I don't want to be undermining and harming my fellow peers in the space, but it's hard to do that as a small business or as an arts organization. So there's a lot that I think we have in front of us and ahead of us at Arts Alliance to both protect creative workers while not harming the small arts organizations that employ those workers and ensure that there are the infrastructure possible to ensure arts and culture activity continues to happen. But it's together that we're able to do that, right? That we continue to educate. With that, I would like to turn it over, just because I've been doing a lot of talking, but I'm more excited to be able to give the floor to our esteemed coalition leaders here today. And so I'll go ahead and invite now Lauren Wright with Illinois Partners for Human Service to speak to us more about the Community Partner Fair Contracting Package. Just for those on the call, Lauren serves as Executive Director at Illinois Partners. They work towards a more equitable future for all Illinoisans. And Lauren is here today representing Illinois Partners, which is a member of the State Health Improvement Plan Committee, the Responsible Budget Coalition, the 211 Advisory Board, the Illinois Supreme Court Commission on Pretrial Practices Implementation Task Force, and the 2022 cohort of the Racial Justice Institute. We're really glad to have our friend Lauren back at an Arts Alliance Illinois policy briefing. We've partnered before on policy briefings, so it's just really great to be able to provide these updates on these policy updates that could benefit small businesses in the creative sector. Turn it over to you, Lauren.
Okay, great. Thanks so much, Sasha. I really appreciate all the background that you shared. It was really enlightening, and so grateful to everybody for joining this call. As Sasha mentioned, I'm Lauren Wright, the Executive Director of Illinois Partners for Human Service, and we're a statewide coalition of health and human service providers, which may seem, I guess, somewhat tangential, but I think a lot of the work that we do, I see as mirroring a lot of the values that Sasha just shared, particularly around worker and worker protection. So I'm not talking about these bills today because they are focused on the human service workforce, but I did want to highlight that we lead a Living Wages, Thriving Communities campaign for human service workers. And I think I always appreciate hearing the work that's being done around workers' rights, ensuring that workers have access to benefits and living wages. And so I just want to I'll just put that in the chat really quick. You can check that out. But that's not what I'm here to talk about today. I'm actually here to talk about community partner fair contracting. And so Illinois Partners were, as Sasha mentioned, statewide coalition, but we also lead a coalition of coalitions called the Health and Human Service Coalition of Illinois, of which Anne is a part as well. And a lot of the work we do is trying to identify through-line issues that all different types of community-based providers are facing. And one such issue that actually goes beyond even community-based providers in health and human services are issues with contracting with the state of Illinois. I think Sasha mentioned it was something like 280 million in state funding secured for the arts, and sorry if I got that number wrong. It was on a previous slide. But thinking through when we are partnered with the state or the city or the county to do some sort of work, it involves, I think, a number of steps that are often very um, taxing, tedious, and administratively burdensome to the community-based providers. And so delayed contracts, actually like saying that you're going to get funding, but then you don't actually get the contract for months. Delayed funding with those contracts is a huge issue. We actually conducted a survey in partnership with Forefront and many others in the Health and Human Service Coalition to understand how pervasive some of these contracting issues were. And we found a lot of, I think, important information that supported this series of bills. So the state, in that survey, we found that the state issued late contracts more than half the time. And that disproportionately and negatively impacted services in Cook County specifically, as well as services in rural areas. At least 25% of state contracts were not paid on a timely, ongoing basis, and organizations with small budgets, which I think applies certainly to smaller arts organizations as well, were more likely to be paid late. And then fewer than half of surveyed contractors were eligible for advanced payments. And so that's another issue that if you don't have runway to front some of the funding that you're expecting from the state, the impact is really pervasive and it's really difficult for small community-based providers who the state needs to fulfill what they're trying to achieve. They're unable to do so. And so for the past few years, we've put forth a series of bills. The past 2 years, it was what's called an omnibus bill, which is basically just a really big bill that touches a lot of different statutes. And so it was called the Community Partner Fair Contracting Act. And its purpose is to, and it's technical, but it's important, is to try and eliminate some of these different barriers so more community-based providers can get their contracts on time, can be paid on time, and can also navigate issues with Court of Claims in an easier way. And that's, getting into the weeds of when you're not paid by the state, then it often goes into Court of Claims, and that's kind of a black box where you're just not sure when you're ever going to be able to get your money. And that's been a huge issue that a lot of our partners have worked on. And so this legislation, we've actually decided this year to put it forward in 3 different bills that are focused on different provisions of the contracting process. So there's a GATA related bill that Illinois Partners is leading, which is focused on addressing some of the administrative burdens within GATA, primarily on the contract issuing side, ensuring that if the state says you are going to receive a contract, from that notice of when you are going to receive it, you need to actually receive that contract within 60 days. Then we also have a prompt payment section of this bill, which again, as it sounds, is related to how do we ensure payments come from the state in a timely manner, and really identifying where those delays are happening. Many times it's within a state agency itself, and every state agency has different processes, and so streamlining those processes. And then we also have a bill that's focused on Court of Claims and making sure that that process is transparent and accessible for community-based providers. And so each of these 3 bills they've all moved out of committee in the House. They're being held on second pending amendments. So we have some momentum here, and I'll be conscious of the time and just share that while this really impacts a lot of the community-based providers we work with, we also hear from small businesses and other types of nonprofits across the state that partner with the state of Illinois to provide some type of service, that this is an issue and it's an inefficiency that has direct impact on communities. And so if you have any questions about this, I gave Sasha the fact sheet, and so you can read a little bit more, and I'm happy to answer any questions at the end, but I'll stop there for the sake of time.
Thank you, Lauren. I appreciate that, to respect the folks' time and hear from everyone. But excellent advancements of this, and I love that it's like structured as a package because there's multiple areas, and having it those kind of levers connect and tether to each other. It's like if we can't get one, maybe we can get a couple of the other pieces. So very strategic. We'll now pass it on to Adam Cater with Arise Chicago. Adam, I'm going to have you go right in, and I'll add your bio into the chat so we can just hear straight from you.
Thank you, Sasha. Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be joining you all. Thanks a lot, Sasha, for inviting Rise Chicago to think more collaboratively with you and your partners. Rise Chicago, for those of you who don't know us already, our mission is to organize the collective power of working class immigrants in partnership with faith communities to lift up all workers. We've been around for 35 years. I've been with the organization for almost 20 of those years now. And essentially what we do is we organize workers to improve work sites by negotiating with their employers for better working conditions. We mobilize the faith community to act in solidarity with workers when they are organizing those campaigns. And then we mobilize both those bases, the low-wage worker base as well as the faith leader ally base, to move pro-worker legislation. So we're the group that helped bring the Domestic Worker Bill of Rights to the state of Illinois, pandemic protections like the right to have paid time off to get your pandemic shots, paid sick days in the city of Chicago, paid time off days in the city of Chicago, and the Office of Labor Standards in the city of Chicago, which is the labor department for the city. I'll jump right in. Happy to answer more specific questions during the Q&A. But like Lauren, I'm going to do sort of like a high-level just overview of two of our key priorities for this year. We are now, this year, have really put our attention to state legislation. As you can tell from our previous policy victories that I mentioned, for the last few years, we were busy working with City Council. We're very excited, though, to be part of a large coalition called the Time to Care Illinois Coalition. And Women Employed is the lead policy advocacy group that is leading this coalition. And for us, this is really important for us thematically. Like I said, we passed paid sick days, so Chicagoans in 2016 were able to earn up to 5 paid sick days per year. Expanded that in 2024 to 5 paid time off days. We're now looking to the state to provide long-term leave. As the name suggests, for family or medical reasons. I'm very proud of how this bill has come together. Obviously, most of you probably know about the FMLA, which is the unpaid program that some workers are entitled to, under the federal legislation. It is unpaid, and so that creates precarity and job insecurity, income loss, and it also exacerbates the gender pay gap. So there's major problems with the FMLA. It also excludes workers in small businesses. So many workers do not get the benefit of that unpaid but protective leave. We found from research that 62% of Illinoisans do not have any family medical leave whatsoever, so that unpaid leave included. We obviously see no hopes at the federal level for action in the near future for moving towards a paid family medical leave. And so that's why we think Illinois must join the 13 other states and Washington, D.C. in providing this benefit for Illinoisans. It is a technical sort of bill and program, but in the broadest strokes possible, it's essentially like a state-run insurance program that allows workers to use up to 18 weeks of paid job-protected leave a year. Plus, I'm really pleased that we have in the provision that would be an additional 9 weeks of leave in the case of the need to maintain a healthy pregnancy or care for a child in intensive care. So this can include, as that suggests, to welcome a new child into a home, for someone's own or a family member's illness, for reasons related to domestic violence or sexual violence. This is important that we've included this here, as has been included in our paid time off and paid sick days legislation. To understand that these are legitimate reasons for taking paid time off. And the way that the insurance program would work essentially is that it would be a small contribution from employers and employees. This is, I want to emphasize that because it's at the scale of the entire state, it's really an excellent deal because it's less than 1% of one's wages would be contributed towards a benefit that would allow you to earn up to 90% of your weekly wage while on leave. The reason why I said up to and about is because this is based on a tier of how much you make. So, of course, the lower income that you make, the higher percentage of the weekly wage that you would earn. So if you're making an extravagant amount of money, probably not most of us on this call, you know, would not be, it would be a lower percentage of your income that you would be taking back. The balance that we've proposed is that 60% of that contribution would come from the employers and 40% would be contributed by the workers. The first $15,000 of earnings is shielded from contribution, meaning that that would not count towards you know, what you would have to pay in to the system. And the system is designed to pay for itself, the benefits and the administration of it, after initial funding that the state would have to spend in order to set up the system. For this audience, it might be important to note that self-employed workers can elect to participate in the program as well. What that means is that, you know, if I'm an independent contractor, I would be paying both the employer and the employee contribution to the fund. That sounds like that would be a lot, but the benefit that you would be able to receive through those contributions would be much greater than the amount that you're paying into the system, again, because we have the statewide economy of scale there. So that, in a nutshell, is that bill. Because I'm presenting on two bills, I'm going to race to the second one. But I'm trusting that Sasha's also going to put the links for the fact sheets if you want to look at more details. The second one is the Illinois Workplace Extreme Temperature Safety Act. And you all can probably guess that that is to provide a standard to protect us when we're working in extreme temperatures. Ever since OSHA got passed in the 70s, advocates have fought to establish a minimum and a maximum temperature standard for our workplaces. This seems, you know, I hope for all of us on this call, this seems like an essential sort of human right level kind of, you know, job protection. And indeed, like so many other, you know, labor issues, all other industrialized democracies in the world do in fact have temperature standards regulating their work sites. Some advocates had hopes that we would pass something under the Biden administration. That's about the closest that we came to a federal standard. But kind of like the problems with the FMLA, there was, again, no hope for any progress on the federal front. So 7 other states currently do have regulated temperatures. And so Illinois would be joining those states in taking some meaningful action forward. I think also it probably goes without saying, but with climate change, we see this being an increasingly critical kind of protection as extreme weather events are becoming more common and more extreme. And then also, I think there's increasing amounts of research now available demonstrating sort of the long-term health impacts from being exposed to extreme temperatures. So we might, you might think of things like heat stroke or frostbite or other things that would be associated with extreme temperatures. Those are certainly dangers. There's also just long-term damage to our organs when they're working extra hard, under extreme temperature conditions. So what our bill would do is that it would establish what it would not do. I should maybe say first is that it would not say that an employer must maintain a specific temperature in the work site or a lower end or a higher end. What it does do, though, is establish clear temperature thresholds. That means that if the temperature were to exceed or dip below certain degrees, that it would trigger certain employer obligations to make sure that workers are taken care of. That could be things like specific personal protective equipment, things like gloves, if the temperatures are very cold. It could also mean more breaks so that we have access to water in the case of extreme heat. It could be a resting break or a cooling break that must be honored to protect the workers in those conditions. It also means that there would be an emergency response procedure and that workers would have to be trained in that procedure. Some employers have pushed back saying that this would be overly burdensome. We liken this to the same protection that we enjoy currently, which is that you would, in terms of like a fire safety protocol, right? Any of us in our workplaces must know where the fire exit strategy, plan is. Similarly, if there were to be extreme temperatures, we would need to know what the plan is, right? That's essentially what this is calling for. Of course, we have built into this bill retaliation protections so that we would be free to exercise our rights under it without, being retaliated against in any way. And also it gives us the power to enforce our rights by being able to go to Department of Labor to sue privately or to appeal to the Attorney General to act. So those are sort of the key basic provisions of this bill. I hope you all join me in thinking that this is a both common sense and also critical, for all kinds of workers. Obviously, for outdoor workers, this is, we can imagine how this would be important for people working outdoors, doing construction. But what I go to pains to emphasize is that for many of our members who work indoors, even restaurant workers, and particularly factory workers, this is a really key provision for us. And so I can go into details about some examples of how it would help folks, but I think I'll pause there as I believe my time is up. So thanks for your attention, and feel free to reach out to me directly after this as well if you would like to get involved or learn more.
Thank you so much, Adam. So thorough. And I do have the fact sheets. I've kindly asked my coworker Maddie to see if it's possible to drop files in the chat, as I am not able to upload from my computer. Go technology. But we will get the fact sheets over to folks, also following the call to anyone that attended. But thank you, Adam. When I think of the Extreme Temperature Act, the Safety Act, I actually think a lot about as a performance artist as well, just how hot it gets out during festivals, there's just a number of areas where I think potentially this also applies for workers who might have not just contracted but employed by certain organizations to perform outside. So thank you. We also want to recognize that a lot of artists have their second job in these industries, for which Arise Chicago is advocating for safer working conditions, which is again another just recognizing at Arts Alliance where artists are, where they are working. While we would love to see more artists stay and devote all of their time, derive all of their income from the arts and culture sector, the reality is that that's not possible. So they're often working in these other industries, and we're really grateful that there are coalitions squarely advocating for their safety and stability. I will now I want to hop a bit now to the Small Business Financing Transparency Act, and just quickly ask Jerry, big warm welcome to Jerry Ugly Pie with the Illinois Small Business Majority. Similarly, for time's sake, I'm going to throw Jerry's bio into the chat and get any fact sheets and bullet points into the chat as well, and as well as following this call. So Jerry, take it away.
Hi, hi all. I'm here today. I'm a senior fellow for small business and workforce research at Small Business Majority. I was a Small Business Majority before I left, actually, to join the administration and back again. And there's a bill that I was working on actually 10 years ago here in Illinois to get passed. And we had more formal efforts in the last 4 years, I think, to actually support Small Business Financing Transparency Act. I know that's a mouthful, but it's really easier to just say APR for all. And thank you, Sasha, for having me here. I know some of you I've worked with before in the past. I really would like to share how important of a priority this is, this legislative session affecting self-employed entrepreneurs and small business owners. Here in Illinois, 81% of small businesses actually have no employees, but we do consider them to be small business owners. Their median income is actually roughly $46,000. So we recognize that. And that's from census numbers. That's not just here in Illinois, that's across the region. the reason why we have APR for all is everybody gets the APR disclosures all in with their credit cards, their student loans, their home loans as well. And so consumers actually are privy to having APR disclosed. Unfortunately, for many years, people assume that it's the same for small business loans. It is at banks and nonprofit entities as well. But with the rise of technology, what we've seen in the past 12 or so years is the rise of financing online from non-bank lenders, and it's not regulated. It's the Wild West out there. They do not have to disclose the APR as all of us receive for our credit cards, our student loans, our home loans, financing that's consumer based. And it's the Wild West. So some players are great, like the American FinTech Council, whose members agree not to charge predatory rates and actually feel it's good business and it's actually fair capitalism to ensure that the APR is disclosed. But they're the bad players, and oftentimes they have projects like merchant cash advances. Many entrepreneurs, self-employed entrepreneurs as well, um, go for these financing online. And what happens is that when you actually add up what would have been the APR, they're paying annual percentage rates of 40, 400, and during COVID, we saw as high as 4,000%. Usually what we're seeing is people pay out of pocket for this. They're signing over access to um, deduct from their point of sales for that week, or they're directly from their business bank account, even when they have no sales as well. So these merchant cash advances, even the SBA under this current administration, surprisingly actually said these are extortionist loans, and taxpayer dollars and SBA loans cannot be used to refinance them. The Federal Reserve has also said that these are predatory loans. Pushing back against us are the large, big businesses, multi-billion dollar businesses that say that these loans are not predatory. They're short term, they're 6, 8, 10 months, and it helps a small business owner get through the financing they need. Well, we know that most small business owners actually need under $25,000, for their loans and such. That winds up being triple or quadruple that with the hidden fees and the APR, and people aren't able to compare apples to apples and oranges to oranges as well. So we'd like your help to sign on as organizations to ensure that we pass this law. It's the fourth time that we're coming to the table on this. Given that the Trump administration has defunded the Consumer Protection Financial Bureau, which is actually the bureau taxpayer funded to go after these bad players and also recoup the funds, it's been defunded. So it's really difficult for federal compensation and people and systems that can also protect these owners if they are victims of these crimes and extortionist products. We're losing in the state of Illinois. We're talking about affordability. We know it's an agenda across the General Assembly. We're actually losing roughly over a little over $1 million each day in savings, these small business owners and outside of Illinois, which could be going to shore up Medicaid, could be going to shore up also supporting the implementation on the front end for the paid family medical leave bill, which we know actually will not cost anything later on, but there is an implementation cost in the beginning. Thank you, Adam, for bringing that up, and we actually signed on to it as well. But when they don't have the runway and the capital up front, you heard from Illinois Partners for Human Services. This is small businesses, not just the nonprofit associations. They can't compete like the larger businesses and lock in those contracts and create those jobs locally in their neighborhoods as well. And what they're doing is they are disproportionately targeting using social media, using your digital footprint to disproportionately target women and people of color, especially Latinos and Blacks, in both urban and rural areas to promote these loans to them. Easy money, quick and fast. It is easy, it's quick and fast, but there's no way that many of these borrowers are going to get out of these loans quick and fast because they begin circling the drain. I was on a radio show with one of our small business owners who had gotten into a merchant cash advance. Nikki Bravo. I don't know if any of you have been to Momentum Coffee. There's 4 locations on the south side at the Bean and such. And she figured out, oh my God, these fees up front, if I had actually seen them in an APR, I would have never taken this and I would have shopped around more. Now she's paying that off, but we have dozens upon hundreds of business owners who have come to our nonprofit funders, who also go to our partners at community banks looking to get out of this. And unfortunately, they've gone too far and they've had to close their businesses, thereby closing that revenue stream in that neighborhood of that local business that's creating those jobs. Illinois Hispanic Chamber is on board with this, to Woodstock Institute, to also Women Employed as well, to make sure that we pass the APR for all legislation. We're having a challenging time. I saw earlier in the chat, what's the priorities? I feel this is a priority because this is the 4th time, and quite frankly, it's a no-brainer to pass this. I don't know why it wasn't passed in the last 3 years. Um, and so I wasn't here, but for whatever reason, what was happening in the General Assembly, it hasn't been a priority. It's a priority now, given the economic conditions, given the unaffordability, given what's happening federally as well with the proposed cuts to small businesses and workforce and labor and Medicaid and education to pay for a war that apparently is only supposed to last for 2 to 3 weeks. But we're already seeing what's happening financially with the trickle-down effects in the proposed budget at the federal level, and knowing that more small business owners are actually having a difficult time keeping their business afloat day to day. The SBA has actually clamped down on the eligibility of loans. It was set up to afford guaranteed loans to people who could not get them anywhere else. Not guaranteed to get them, but guaranteed to cover them uh, for decades since the SBA was created back in 1953. That is no longer. They are now looking at eligibility based on country of origin, not only on the owner, but also whoever your key staff may be. That was never a condition of receiving loans and financing from the SBA. So are seeing more small business owners of color turning to these online lenders. We also know that Black small businesses do have a history of not trusting banking systems, and they naturally are more attracted to the online lenders, thinking that it's safer. It's not necessarily safer. So NPR has done a series, 2 uh, articles and podcasts about this as well. They plan to do 2 more in that series as well, exposing the shadowy truths about especially merchant cash advances. But we need your help. I'd like, all the organizations here to help support this, especially if when the witnesses comes up and it comes up in a hearing, and to pass this, and to see if you can integrate this as an ask with your legislators that you're speaking to, asking them. We represent a lot of small business owners, and they are concerned about affordability. We feel APR for all, HB 744, is important to protect them. And will you support this if they haven't already? And second one is asking if any of you have self-employed workers, be it full or part-time, owning a business, and has had challenge with paying back financing that they felt was over 40%. Now, I'm keeping this very broad because a lot of times people feel they've gotten into a predatory loan and it's actually a responsible loan. They just haven't had the supportive resources to manage their books well. So one way that we're approaching this is if somebody feels that they've had trouble paying back financing that they feel was over 40% or the APR wasn't disclosed, we'd love to hear from them and tell their story. Nikki Bravo doesn't have any shame, but there's a lot of small business owners who feel that they won't be bankable if they tell their story. We simply want to have witnesses tell their story to the legislators and present more small businesses to them. But there is a human component of shame that comes with seeing themselves as a victim. So we actually can spin that around. We've got a wonderful comms team, and make it very broad that they can feel safe and comfortable telling their story. at a broad level and not necessarily the nitty-gritty of that. We can also quickly look and see what their actual finance charges were if they want to share us their paperwork, but we will not share that. That will be confidential too, so that we can make it a more compelling story. So those are my two asks for HB 744, Small Business Financing Transparency Act. I just like to call it APR for all, so you can compare apples to apples.
Thank you so much, Jerry. I just, for time's sake, I want to, because we have one more speaker. Thank you so much, and for dropping in the yes, thank you, Maddie, for the fact sheets. We'll drop others. I'm just struggling to drop the sheets from my phone, so you'll continue to do that. Last speaker, last but not least, thank you so much for joining us as well, Anne. Anne's here on behalf of new moms and their social enterprise Bright Endeavors. She'll share a little bit more about Illinois Reset and SB 2295. It's really exciting because Bright Endeavors, I would consider, is a employee social enterprise in the creative economy, and it's exciting to think about other ways that we can secure and give pathways to stable employment in the creative sector through the employment social enterprise model. And take it away.
It's really good to be with you all today. I really appreciate the invitation, Sasha. As Sasha said, I'll share a little bit more about employment social enterprise, but there are a number of us who are providing folks in the creative economy, a lot of craftsmen, a lot of artisans, working in spaces where we are producers of goods. And so it's very lovely to connect with you all. Probably the newest coalition on the block with Illinois Reset. We are newly formed as of a year ago. So I really appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit more about what it is that we're up to. And just want to say to Jerry, keep up the good work. Many years ago now, was involved in payday loan reform. And so I know this APR battle, many of the same issues. So you'll get there. I know you're going to get there, and appreciate you sharing the opportunity to join you in that. So Illinois Reset stands for Illinois Resourcing Employment Social Enterprise Together. And for those of you who don't know what an employment social enterprise is, you are not alone. And part of what we want to do is kind of spread the word about what those are. And there really are three distinctives that make a business an employment social enterprise. So the first one is that it is a business. It is for profit. Some of them are housed within a nonprofit, like Bright Endeavors is housed within New Moms, but they are for-profit businesses. They exist for the purpose of moving folks who've experienced barriers to employment into employment and career pathways of choice. So that's sort of the missional alignment that sort of binds us together. And then the third distinctive is while individuals are employed at an employment social enterprise, we also provide supportive services to try to overcome some of those barriers and provide folks with the skills, experience, and opportunities to take the next steps to achieve their career goals. So just as an example, Sasha mentioned Bright Endeavors, and that is our job training program at New Moms. It's a for-profit soy candle manufacturing company and home fragrances. So New Moms serves moms who are 24 and younger who are potentially experiencing homelessness, are looking for job training opportunities. And we also provide family support programs, including doula services and home visiting and mental health counseling and well-being. All really designed to surround mom with support so that she doesn't have to parent alone and can take a breath out of survival mode and figure out what goals she wants to set for herself and her family, and has partners in reaching those goals. So that is why we exist. And we really started Bright Endeavors so that we could be sure to have an opportunity for mom to gain job training experience in our transitional job training program, also earning wages along the way, because diapers are going to be necessary all the time. And so we want mom to be able to be paid from the start so she can really experience and begin to build skills of economic mobility. So we joined together with a number of our other employment social enterprise businesses in the state of Illinois. Right now, we've identified about 33 We are convinced there are more out there who maybe just haven't thought of themselves as an social enterprise. So if you are familiar with one or you are one yourself, I would love to connect because we are actively looking to expand our coalition. And we also are looking for partners who believe in what we do and see alignment with our mission. So we came together because in the state of Illinois, many of us were experiencing barriers to accessing capital or other programming opportunities coming out of the Department of or DCO or really anywhere in the state because nobody really knows what we are and we don't fully fit into currently defined categories for funding. And so all that Senate Bill 2295 does is create a definition within Illinois State Code of what an employment social enterprise is. So it is really just authorizing. It is not, there's no cost associated with it, which is a big deal this year, which is why we're hopeful that it can get over the finish line. It's really just helping the state know what we are so that when opportunities are available, we're able to compete along with everybody else. And so that's what we're looking to do in this legislation. It has passed out of the state government committee, and we are hoping for a Senate vote, a full Senate vote next week when they get back in session to send it over to the House. There is House Bill 3751, which is a companion bill, same language, which has passed out of committee in the House and then the full House and has been sent over to the Senate. But we've got so far the most traction on the Senate bill, and so we're running with that one. I did send a fact sheet and also a sheet with a QR code that if you're interested in joining the coalition, we'd love for you to fill that out. And I am dropping in the chat my contact information. So feel free to get in touch if you have other questions or just want to help think through how we can expand this together. I will just make a second ask is that we really are looking to connect with folks across the state of Illinois who see themselves in this employment social enterprise bucket and or supportive organizations. So we'd love to go on a road trip this summer. New Moms, I should say, is based in the Austin neighborhood of Chicago, serving the city of Chicago and then the near western suburbs. So I'd love to jump in my car and get to know some other organizations. So if you have ideas, I would love those as well. Thanks, Sasha.
Thank you, Anne. And I know that we are already at time. I want to respect everyone's time. I think there were just a few questions in the chat. We might have time if there's anyone, if one burning question before we let out that I just want to make sure I open up the floor for. Okay. Otherwise, I think there was a question to you, Anne, from Jerry about if any of the ESEs were B Corp or B Corp certified. So not that I know of. I don't know of any. And I used to run a social enterprise at a workforce organization called CARA. And at the time, there were any B Corps. But
yeah, it's a great question. I don't want to lie and say something that's wrong. So let me look into that for you, Jerry.
I'll just plug, we have our help desk, which is also now expanded to support creative workers. We are partnered with Scale It to give access to creative workers experiencing instability. Come visit us at the link on the site, www.artsalliance.org/support/. And then looking forward as well to share other resources through the help desk, other webinars, and we would really love to be able to, oh, here we go. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. Stop sharing my screen. We'll love to share these fact sheets and continue to stay engaged throughout the rest of the year beyond our Capital Days. If you have any questions, we'll have the contact info for Anne, for Adam, Jerry, and Lauren, who had to hop off. But thank you all for being here today. And again, we're stronger together. We appreciate you all, and we'll see you throughout the rest of the year. Take care, everyone.